Could Super Shadow and Super Sonic take out Thanos and his army?
We can really sit here and say Sonic is producing enough energy to level countries, or specifically 218 teratons of TNT. For comparison, this blue hedgehog while running is both producing and withstanding far more energy than what Thor had to barely withstand in Infinity War.
Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help.
What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to be starting off the year with another banger of a video. Today, my co-host is here with me, Fearless Reptile VA. Go ahead and say what's up.
What's up, everyone?
Now, before we start addressing all of the various different points we're going to go over, first we're going to be going over inconsistent low ends, like the downplay arguments for both sides, because for some weird reason, like many different people on many different platforms like to downplay the MCU, but they don't necessarily point out all the downplayed arguments that could be made for the Sonic Cinematic Universe. Once we go over that, we're going to go over consistency, what they have mostly shown, to give a genuine representation on how strong and how fast that they would be. And then we're going to go with the highest arguments possible, and then we'll conclude when comparing the two, or the three actually, in this video. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and slide it to my co-host, and he's going to go over why some of the low ends for the MCU and for the Sonic Cinematic Universe is really just such a trash point of argumentation, and it does a huge disservice when analyzing all the characters that are being mentioned in this video.
So when discussing the lower and inconsistent arguments for both of these two, Iron Man was able to make Thanos bleed, and he has had a hard time hitting Spider-Man at times, and he even got blasted away by lightning from Captain America. And now when going over to Sonic, in the lower end side, Sonic in the first movie was not fast enough to move out of the way for a dart to hit him, as well as he was not strong enough to get a bomb off of him and get out of the way as the explosion happened. He also was not strong enough to damage a regular human in a bar brawl. So as already implied by Manny, the reason why we're mentioning these inconsistent low ends is to point out not only the hypocrisy made by both fan bases to have their arguments be superior, but it's mainly to demonstrate that these characters are a lot stronger and should at least get a consistent level of representation when analyzed on this topic.
For sure, because it'd be kind of crazy to sit here and say that Sonic is absolute fodder because he was getting pressed by like rocks from Knuckles, and like in the Sonic 3 film, he was over here like tied up to like a wooden post, like like it was like, what? Yeah, no, so that's not a genuine representation on how strong these characters are. Clearly they're a lot stronger consistently, and with the higher end arguments, they're not likely to be that strong, but those are things that did happen to upscale like their speed or whatever. Like if you like using the highest interpretations of the character possible, it is what it is. So with that being said, we're going to go over Sonic's consistency, and I'm going to let Fearless Reptile go ahead and explain to you where Sonic should consistently be scaled at.
So for starters, let's go over strength and durability for both Sonic and Shadow. Shadow in Sonic 3 was able to charge up the Eclipse Cannon that was going to destroy the entire Earth. It doesn't fully scale to planet level because he did not instantly charge the cannon up. It did take a little bit of time. However, this has been calced to be at least small planet level, and this also applies to Sonic as well because he scales to Shadow. Now that's their base form. However, let's look at their super forms now. At the end of Sonic 3, Sonic and Shadow and their super forms were able to hold off a blast that was going to destroy the entire planet. This feat would put both of their durability and strength at planet level plus. This is so far the best showings for Sonic and Shadow in the movies. There is more to show, but going over those would be irrelevant because none are superior to these feats. And now when going over their consistent levels of speed, Sonic was fast enough to run to the Pacific and back in just a few seconds. It can move so fast that bullets and missiles are frozen in place from his perspective, as well as they are also able to dodge lasers. However, when talking about both of their super forms, this only increases their speeds to much higher amounts. The exact extent is unspecified in the movies, though both Sonic and Shadow were able to casually dodge many oncoming lasers in space. So putting Sonic and Shadow faster than light in their base forms sounds very fair, and FTL Plus in super forms is also fair for consistent arguments. And now I'm going to go ahead and go over the abilities that Sonic and Shadow possess. When it comes to Sonic's abilities, we have seen him carry around rings that are able to transport himself or others to any place that he thinks of. We have seen it being able to transport to different parts of the world, such as at the end of the first movie when he uses the ring to transport Dr. Robotnik or otherwise Eggman to the mushroom planet that Sonic described earlier on in the movie. Sonic can also generate shockwaves, which as shown in the first movie was strong enough to knock out power in the entire Pacific Northwest, and even reached into outer space and to an entire different planet, thus how Tails knew about Sonic to begin with. Shadow can fly with his hover shoes, create long-range projectiles, as well as teleport, and in both of their super forms, they can create anything that they imagine. As in the second movie, Sonic creates a storm that rains down chili dogs. Now let's go ahead and check out Thanos' consistencies. Go ahead, Manny, floor is yours.
So for the consistent scaling of Thanos, I'm going to be going over a couple things that Thanos should scale to, if not above. We know someone like Peter Quill has technology that's capable of destroying moons. We also know that Thor, ever since the first film, can shake entire planets and even shatter entire planets, according to statements in data books. We also know that they also scale to and above Infinity Stones. You have scenes like Hela looking down at one of the Infinity Stones. We also see Thor taking on Malekith using the Reality Stone. These stones have been stated to be able to destroy entire planets. Some of the stones have actually been shown to destroy entire planets. And the scaling continues consistently further on as the movies progress. We see Captain Marvel is able to reignite dying stars. We also see Thor actually tank the full force of a neutron star, which was stated to be a neutron star by Thor to Rocket. In the official guides, it's outright stated that Mjolnir was forged in a dying star. And on top of that, we know that Odin had told Thor that he was in fact stronger than him. And this is the same Odin during his wife's funeral. He was able to dematerialize his wife into a bunch of very small light particles that then flew into outer space deep within the stars, and then they grew and they appeared to be stars. So a lot of people say that Odin did create stars, and even if they weren't actually stars, just the energy of light being sent out deep into space and being viewed upon by the Asgardians as appearing to be like stars. We also know that Thanos does scale to these characters. He's outright defeated them, and the only real way that he gets pressed is when they're all jumping him. A lot of people like to downplay this, but it's kind of weird because some of Thanos's worser showings is when he's like tired and he's already getting weakened throughout the fight, and it's actually stated that Thanos has gotten weakened as the fight progressed. So with all that being said, Thanos should fairly easily be at least consistently in the star level ranges, and that's in reference to his physical strength and his durability and his AP. So for speed, we know that Peter Quill was able to enter into firefights with hundreds, maybe even thousands of other fighter ships, and they're all popping off laser beams at each other. We know people like Bucky and Captain America can stand in the pocket with Iron Man popping off lasers. We see Spider-Man dodging lasers. We see multiple other characters utilize lasers throughout the majority of the MCU films. So being FTL plus for Thanos, very easy to argue consistently. And with that being said, I would have Thanos strength, durability, and AP in the star level ranges at least for consistency. And for his combat speed and reaction time, he should be FTL plus. And there's plenty more feats as well. However, we're just trying to keep it simple. You know, we could drag it out for a long time, but there's not really a point to do all that. Now, when it comes to comparing the two consistently, I personally only give Sonic and Shadow the advantage in speed in regards to travel speed and mobility, being able to maneuver throughout the environment. But in close quarters, Thanos can definitely react to them. He's not getting blitzed, and he could land some combos of his own. And considering how much more powerful he is and how much more durable he is, that's a massive problem that I don't see them being able to accomplish. And when going over the abilities of the stones, we're going to go over the higher end arguments for the stones here in a little bit, but just over the basic abilities I'm going to read out to you guys. So when equipped with the Infinity Gauntlet and with all the stones, because I've seen a lot of people say that even with the stones, Thanos loses, which, wild, but the Time Stone grants complete control over time. One could rewind, speed up time, and observe visions of the future. However, the stone requires an intelligent and highly skilled user, as reckless manipulation of the time continuum could result in disaster. The Power Stone grants the user to gain enhanced power, stamina, and can also fire concentrated energy beams. When combined with the other stones, all energy that exists across the universe can be controlled, granting the user unlimited strength. The Space Stone grants the user the ability to manipulate space in ways that allow teleportation across the universe and even into alternate dimensions. One could also create wormholes and manipulate gravity, regardless of the laws of physics. The Reality Stone allows the ability to alter reality. Now, this is funny because Sonic was able to warp reality at like a city level range by creating like a storm and sending down chili dogs, but this right here, the powers include creating illusions, manipulating environments, transmuting objects, and even accessing the realities of alternate universes. Feats-wise, we see him completely warp the reality on Titan, the planet that they were on. So he has a much larger range, and with the official guides stated here on how the Reality Stone works, it could even be more potent, to be honest. So I think Thanos has better reality warping abilities and has better reality warping feats than what Sonic has shown. Also, the reality altering abilities increase in power when combined with other stones, meaning that it can get even more out of pocket. The Soul Stone allows the ability to manipulate life and death. Souls could also be trapped within the stone in what was called the Soul World. When combined with the power of the other stones, the user is granted control over all life, allowing Thanos' infamous snap. The Mind Stone grants the user powers of telepathy, telekinesis, high intelligence, dream manipulation, and mind control. I'm gonna just say this right now. Like, Sonic and Shadow have never demonstrated resisting mind hacks, having their souls ripped out of their body, none of that, right? These abilities he has, these are kind of just auto win. But I'm gonna keep reading. The Mind Stone is even able to create sentience in artificial beings as shown with Vision in the MCU. When combined with the other stones, the user can manipulate all minds across the universe. So, just looking over the abilities, not even really scaling how powerful the stones would be at the highest levels, like with the higher end arguments, which we're going to get into. Thanos is stronger consistently. He's more durable consistently. In terms of travel speed and mobility, okay, I'll give it to Sonic and Shadow. But in terms of close quarters combat, he's not getting blitzed. He can more than likely react to both of these guys and actually tag them. And if he does tag them, they're in some serious trouble. But even then, the abilities, mind control, soul snatching, right? They have no defense against that. His reality warping abilities are way more insane than what Sonic has demonstrated. And honestly, I believe Thanos absolutely dominates when it comes to even consistent arguments. So with that being said, if my co-host has anything to add on that, go ahead.
Another thing to add on about the abilities is that some people might make comments about Chaos Control. Wouldn't it be able to counter what the Infinity Gauntlet can do? Well, no it would not. That's because Chaos Control in the movies has been severely nerfed and cannot do the same things as its video game counterpart, at least for now. That is subject to change in the future, but for right now, we can't say that it can. So Shadow simply doesn't have an answer to the crazy hacks that Thanos is going to be dishing out.
Yeah, so that would conclude the consistent arguments. Sonic should be planetary, planet plus, FTL. and he has mild reality warping powers. Shadow has teleportation. Shadow should scale to Sonic. That's where they should consistently be at. And Thanos should consistently be in the star level range. Thanos should also have FTL reaction time and combat speed. As stated before, I do think Shadow and Sonic hold an edge over travel speed and mobility, but that's only going to get them so far. And when it comes to their special abilities, their crazy hacks, we already brought it up. Mind control, soul snatch, better reality warping feats and statements. It's just, for consistency, there's no way Sonic and Shadow are doing anything to Thanos, especially if we're talking about the stones. Without the stones, they would kind of be in the same spot as well, considering that star level strength for Thanos, star level durability for Thanos, FTL combat speed and reaction, he's going to end up tagging them regardless. They simply do not pack that much of a punch to be able to put him down for good. Something's going to happen, and Thanos is just going to come out on top. There's a whole bunch of people in Infinity War and Endgame with crazy scaling, especially with speed, that had to jump Thanos. They had to jump him. They literally had to traverse through time after Thanos already snapped half of all life out of the universe to, like, jump him again, and even then they barely squeezed out a win. It's just the MCU has better showings, they have better feats, they have more lore backing up their statements, and it's just not close for consistency. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move over to the higher end arguments, right? This is where we're going to be talking about, like, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So go ahead, Reptile, floor's yours, buddy.
So when going over high ends for Sonic and Shadow, we see that one of Sonic's quills was stated to have unlimited power. This can be interpreted as having unlimited energy, as well as we see a chart in the background that is seemingly going up forever and never stopping. You can make the argument that just one of his quills should scale to universal, and since hedgehogs have thousands of quills, you could argue Sonic and Shadow being somewhere in the low multiversal ranges of power, strength, and durability. And while on the topic of high-end speed feats, one thing that gets brought up a lot is the feat that I mentioned earlier, that being the feat of Sonic generating a shockwave that affected the entire Pacific Northwest and reached outer space into a different planet, that being Tails' planet. However, this was not brought up for consistent speed feats because I do not think that this scales to Sonic's actual speed. Yes, this was calced to be trillions of times faster than light, and yes, that means his shockwaves can move that fast, but that doesn't automatically mean that he himself can also travel that fast. And when discussing this for high ends, whether or not you agree or disagree with this scaling to his actual speed is irrelevant because he already has better showings for high ends, as just mentioned. In the novelization for the movies, it's been stated that Sonic can access hyper speed, which allows him to have a pace so fast that it pushes beyond the boundaries of reality. Their cosmology hasn't been fully explored, so all we know of at this moment is one singular universe, so this can be interpreted as having infinite speed to having a baseline level of inaccessible speed. So that's it for the higher end arguments for Sonic. Now let's check up on Thanos.
Yeah, so going over the highest end arguments possible, this is just disgusting. Okay, so for one, Thanos scales to the stones, right? And each stone should, for the highest end interpretations, at least be universal. We've already gone over some of the statements as presented earlier in the video. They can cross over entire universes, they can gain power throughout the entirety of the universe and things like that. But there's actually crazier high ends, and for reference, high-end arguments do not require a preponderance of evidence, right? They're outliers, right? They're the highest interpretation possible. So Doctor Strange, when facing Dormammu, it was stated that Dormammu was an 11th dimensional being, stated in guidebooks and by the directors on social media. 11D. That's like high hyper to base outer. This would make sense because it was explained by not only Odin and the Collector, it was explained to the point where we see that the Infinity Stones were once the six singularities. The six singularities predate creation and caused the birth of the universe, which created the very concepts of time and space, power, the conscious mind, the astral plane, all kinds of different crazy things. However, giving birth to the universe isn't just it, right? They actually extrapolated it a little bit further and said that there is an infinite multiverse that's infinitely vast, right? So you got things like that. You could easily say that the stones should scale to the creation of not only the universe but the multiverse, and it predates creation, which means that it should coincide with dimensions such as the dark dimension that has been stated to be beyond human comprehension and human understanding. We're able to understand the very concepts of time and space. We're able to understand outer-versal levels of power. We debate about it all the time. However, you can't necessarily understand how high the dark dimension is in comparison. So outer-versal arguments are there in the MCU, and it's just insane. The stones predate creation on a conceptual level. They can ensnare 11th dimensional beings like Dormammu, and Dormammu scales to the dark dimension. Because we know that one of his missions was to pull in all other dimensions into the dark dimension, making himself a lot stronger. And that's just insane. It's crazy to think about how Doctor Strange really ensnared Dormammu with just the Time Stone.
Thanos has 6 of them.
Like, what are Sonic and Shadow supposed to do? You could throw in a hypothetical Super Knuckles in there. They're not doing anything. Is there anything that's 11D in the SCU, in the Sonic Cinematic Universe? I don't think so. And as for speed, it's not even close. Thanos should have immeasurable speed and reaction time, combat speed. And this is prevalent based off of Peter Quill. He was able to perceive eternity. This is also predicated on scaling above Doctor Strange, who actually fought Thanos, and Thanos did a pretty good job, and they actually had to jump Thanos. This Doctor Strange fought Dormammu once again. As mentioned before, Dormammu is an 11th dimensional being, so his attacks should be anywhere from inaccessible to immeasurable, considering that the dark dimension is not only a timeless realm, but it's beyond human understanding, human knowledge. So Thanos having immeasurable speed for the highest interpretation would make sense, considering that when he uses the stones, you can literally see all the power of the stones just flowing through his body, so he would be able to scale to the stones. There's just more wank for Thanos. So with that being said, it's not even close. Nothing in the SCU with Sonic and Shadow, nothing shows immeasurable speed. We don't see them time travel. We don't see them dealing with people that can see millions of timelines. We don't see anybody boxing 11th dimensional beings. So you can't even argue immeasurable speed for anybody in the Sonic Cinematic Universe, but you definitely can for the MCU for sure, especially for Thanos.
Yeah, when looking at the higher end arguments possible, I just can't agree more with that. Like, Sonic and Shadow just don't have the abilities or strength to take down Thanos. Now, granted, with them being interpreted with higher end arguments to have infinite and inaccessible speed, they could definitely keep up in the speed department, but that's the only department they can really keep up. I mean, they're just outclassed in every way possible except that. So, yeah, unfortunately, Thanos wins this in a landslide.
Alright, so with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, go ahead and leave your suggestions down in the comment section below. If you guys want to see more Thunder Clashes, go over to the GoFundMe. It's totally optional. Bare minimum $5 would really help, so we can get more really fire animated versus battles out there for you guys. You guys really love the Infinite versus Shadow Mewtwo. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace out.